They say teaching is a calling. What they don't tell you is that one lie can destroy 20 years of answered calls in a single afternoon. My name is Michael Carter, and this is the story of how I went from Teacher of the Year to accused predator because a student didn't like her grade. I'd been teaching high school English literature for 20 years, 20 years of early mornings and late nights grading papers, 20 years of watching kids who hated reading discover Hemingway, or cry over The Great Gatsby, or argue passionately about whether Holden Caulfield was a hero or a fraud. I loved it, every exhausting, underpaid, underappreciated minute of it. My classroom was my kingdom. Posters of literary quotes on the walls, a reading corner with donated books and a worn armchair. Students came during lunch to discuss novels, to get help with college essays, to just talk about life. I'd written recommendation letters for hundreds of kids, attended their graduations, their weddings, gotten Christmas cards from former students who'd become doctors, lawyers, teachers themselves. I thought I was good at this. I thought I was making a difference. I was wrong. Madison Wells walked into my AP Literature class on the first day of senior year like she owned the place. Designer clothes, perfect hair, that particular brand of confidence that comes from never being told no. She sat in the back row, phone out, before I'd even started taking attendance. "Ms. Wells," I said, using the formal address I used for all students. "Phones away during class, please." She looked up at me with ice-blue eyes and a smile that didn't reach them. "It's Madison, and I was just finishing something important. I'm sure it can wait 50 minutes. She put the phone away, but something in her expression made my spine tingle. I'd been teaching long enough to recognize the look. Entitled kid who's never been held accountable, meeting someone who won't bend the rules. I should have been more careful, should have seen the warning signs, but I didn't. The first few weeks went normally. Madison did the bare minimum, showed up late, didn't participate in discussions, turned in mediocre essays clearly written the night before. Her work was passing, but barely. For a student in AP Literature, supposedly the best and brightest, it was disappointing. When I handed back her first major essay, she stayed after class. "A C+? Her voice was sharp. "This is going to ruin my GPA." "The rubric is right there," I said, pointing to the grading criteria I'd attached to every essay. "Your thesis was weak, you had minimal textual evidence, and there were several grammar errors. A C+ is generous." "I've never gotten a C in my life." "Then this is a good opportunity to learn and improve. I'm happy to go over it with you, show you how to strengthen your analysis." "I don't need to improve. I need you to change my grade." "That's not how this works, Madison. You earn your grades. If you want a better grade next time, put in more effort." Her jaw tightened. "Do you know who my mother is?" "No, and it doesn't matter. Every student in this class is graded on the same rubric." She grabbed her essay and left without another word. I'd had this conversation 100 times over the years. Entitled students angry about grades. They'd complain, maybe have their parents call, then eventually accept it and move on. Madison didn't move on. 2 weeks later, I noticed her behavior change. She started sitting in the front row, wore lower-cut tops, stayed after class to ask questions she clearly already knew the answers to, laughed too hard at things that weren't funny, touched my arm when we talked. Red flags everywhere. I started keeping my classroom door open during these interactions, made sure to maintain physical distance. When she asked for extra help, I suggested she come during my office hours when other students were around, or join the after-school study group. "I learned better one-on-one," she said, twirling her hair. "I'm sure you do, but my policy is to keep interactions professional and in public spaces. It protects both of us." She smiled. It looked like a threat. I should have documented everything. should have gone to the principal, should have done something more than just try to maintain boundaries. But I didn't want to overreact, didn't want to be the paranoid teacher who assumed the worst, didn't want to believe that a student would weaponize accusations. 3 weeks before winter break, Madison failed her midterm essay, an F. She'd barely addressed the prompt and had clearly plagiarized sections from SparkNotes. I called her in after school, door open, another teacher visible in the hallway, to discuss it. This is unacceptable work, Madison, and the plagiarism is a serious academic integrity violation. I have to report this to the administration. Her face went white, then red. You can't do that. It'll ruin my college applications. You should have thought about that before submitting plagiarized work. I didn't plagiarize. You're lying. I showed her the SparkNotes page, highlighted the identical passages. The evidence is right here. This is because you're mad I won't sleep with you. The words hung in the air like poison gas. Excuse me? My voice came out strangled. You've been hitting on me all semester, staring at me, making inappropriate comments, asking me to stay after class alone, and when I rejected you, you started failing me. Now you're making up lies about plagiarism. My blood turned to ice. Madison, that is absolutely not true. I've maintained strict professional boundaries. That's not what I'll tell people. She stood, gathering her things. Change my grade, make the plagiarism charge go away, or everyone will know what kind of teacher you really are. That's blackmail. That's my word against yours, and who do you think they'll believe? The vulnerable teenage girl or the middle-aged male teacher? She left. I sat in my empty classroom, hands shaking, trying to process what had just happened. I should have gone straight to the principal, should have documented everything immediately, should have protected myself. But I was in shock, and I made the fatal mistake of thinking truth would be enough. It wasn't. 2 days later, I was called to Principal Morrison's office. His face was grave. Michael, we've received a serious allegation. Madison Wells claims you've been sexually harassing her. The room spun. That's a lie. She's angry about her grade. She tried to blackmail me into changing it. She says you've been making inappropriate comments, touching her, asking you to meet you alone. I never, my voice cracked. I kept my door open. I maintained distance. Ask anyone. Ask the other teachers. Her mother is Karen Wells, the attorney. She's already contacted the school board and is threatening a lawsuit. We have to take this seriously. I am taking it seriously. It's my career, my life, and it's a lie. Morrison's expression was sympathetic but resigned. I believe you, Michael. I've known you for 15 years, but the optics are bad. The board is going to recommend we place you on administrative leave while we investigate. You're suspending me based on a lie from a student who's angry about her grade? It's not suspension, it's administrative leave, with pay, just until we can sort this out. How long? However long the investigation takes. I wanted to rage, to flip the desk, to scream about injustice, but I just nodded, numb. By the time I left the building, the rumor had already spread. I could see it in the looks from other teachers, the whispered conversations that stopped when I walked by, the careful distance people maintained. Guilty until proven innocent. The next weeks were a nightmare. Karen Wells filed a formal complaint with the school board. Madison gave a tearful interview to the local news, face obscured, voice disguised, talking about how her trust had been violated and how no one would listen when she tried to report it. The story went viral, not nationally, but in our small town, it was everywhere. Social media exploded. Parents demanded I be fired. Students organized protests. Someone spray-painted Predator on my car. I hired a lawyer, but he was pessimistic. These cases are nearly impossible to defend. It's your word against hers. Even if the school doesn't fire you, your reputation is destroyed. There has to be something, evidence, witnesses. Do you have any evidence that she's lying? I have evidence of good character, 20 years of teaching, dozens of former students who could vouch. Character witnesses help, but they don't prove innocence. We need evidence she fabricated the story. I didn't have any. The investigation dragged on. The school board interviewed other students, other teachers. No one had witnessed inappropriate behavior because there hadn't been any. But absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence. Madison gave multiple interviews, each one more detailed and damaging. She cried, she trembled, she was convincing. My wife stood by me, but I could see the strain. Our adult kids called, upset and confused. Friends stopped reaching out. I was a pariah. I spent my days in my home office, not on leave, but in suspended. I called my lawyer immediately. We need to subpoena records from her previous school, get the settlement documents, find the teacher she accused. That's sealed. Confidential settlements can't be disclosed. There has to be a way. Even if we could, it doesn't prove she's lying now. It might just prove she's been victimized before. Or it proves she's a serial accuser who knows how to work the system. My lawyer was quiet. I'll see what I can do. It took weeks. My lawyer filed motions. Karen Wells fought every one. The school board wanted to just resolve this quietly, offer me a resignation with a severance package, make it all go away. I refused. If I resigned, everyone would believe I was guilty. My name would be destroyed forever. Finally, we caught a break. My lawyer found the previous teacher Madison had accused. His name was David Reeves, and he was teaching at a private school in another state. He'd signed an NDA as part of his settlement, but my lawyer argued that the NDA was void if the accusations were false and part of a pattern of fraud. David agreed to talk. She did the exact same thing, he told me over the phone, his voice bitter. Mediocre grades, stayed after class, got flirtatious, then accused me of harassment when I maintained boundaries. Her mother threatened a lawsuit. The school didn't want the publicity, so they paid them off and I left. Did you have any evidence she was lying? I had my classroom door open. I had other teachers nearby, but it didn't matter. The accusation was enough. Why did you settle if you were innocent? Because fighting it would have cost more than the settlement. And even if I won, people would always wonder. It's a lose-lose situation. I'm not settling. Then you're braver than I was. But his testimony gave us something. My lawyer dug deeper and found something else. Another teacher at Madison's middle school, a gym coach who'd been forced to resign after a complaint from, you guessed it, Madison Wells, age 13. 3 teachers, 3 accusations, 3 payouts. It was a pattern, a scam, mother and daughter working together. We filed all of this with the school board, demanded they reopen the investigation, threatened our own lawsuit for defamation and wrongful termination. Karen Wells fought back hard, claimed we were victim-blaming, claimed the previous cases were irrelevant, claimed we were trying to destroy her daughter's reputation. But the school board couldn't ignore the pattern. They brought in an independent investigator, someone with no connection to our town, no stake in the outcome. She interviewed everyone, reviewed everything, and she found more. Text messages between Madison and her friends, joking about the Teacher Takedown Project, social media posts that had been deleted but were recovered, a recording made by another student of Madison laughing about how easy it is to ruin someone's life. The investigator also found something I hadn't known. Madison Wells had sued 4 different schools over the past decade. Each time a teacher was accused. Each time a settlement was reached. Each time the family walked away with 6 figures. It wasn't about protecting her daughter. It was a business model. When the investigation report came out, it was damning. Madison had fabricated everything. The previous accusations were likely false too. Karen Wells had been orchestrating this for years, using her legal expertise to exploit schools' fear of bad publicity. The school board held a press conference, cleared my name, apologized, offered me my job back, but the damage was done. Students I'd taught for years wouldn't look at me. Parents who'd trusted me now saw me differently. Even though I was exonerated, the accusation had left a stain. Karen Wells was disbarred for her role in the scheme. Madison was expelled and faced charges for filing false reports. Other schools that had settled came forward, wanting to reopen their cases. The local news covered my exoneration, but it got a fraction of the attention the original accusation had. That's how these stories work. The accusation goes viral. The retraction is buried. I took a leave of absence, needed time to process, to heal. My wife and I went away for a month, somewhere no one knew us, knew what had happened. It helped, but the wounds were deep. When I came back, I had a choice to make. Return to teaching, knowing some people would always wonder, or walk away from the career I loved. The school district offered me a significant settlement, their way of apologizing for not protecting me better. I could have taken it and started over somewhere else. But I thought about all the good teachers out there, walking this same tightrope every day, one accusation away from losing everything. And I thought about students who might weaponize accusations in the future, seeing how easy it had been for Madison Wells. Someone had to stand up. I went back to teaching. Same school, same classroom, same literary quotes on the walls. The first day back was terrifying. I didn't know how students would react, if they'd believe I was innocent, if they'd ever trust me again. But something remarkable happened. My classroom filled with students. Some were kids I'd taught before, others were new. They gave me a standing ovation. "We never believed it, Mr. Carter," one student said. "We knew you." Not everyone clapped. Some parents withdrew their kids from my class. Some colleagues still kept their distance. The accusation would follow me forever, I knew that. But I also knew I'd won something more important than vindication. I'd won the right to keep doing what I loved, to keep making a difference, to keep answering the calling. Madison Wells transferred to another school district. Last I heard, her mother was still fighting the disbarment and facing lawsuits from the teachers they'd destroyed. The previous teachers who'd been accused came forward with their own stories, finally able to speak without the NDAs silencing them. Some got their jobs back, some had moved on, but at least the truth was out. David Reeves called me after it all settled down. "Thank you," he said, "for fighting. I should have done that. You did what you had to do to survive. Maybe, but you did what I wished I had been brave enough to do. You didn't let them win." But here's the thing about these stories that no one tells you. Even when you're proven innocent, you never fully win. I still lock my classroom door when I'm alone, still avoid being one-on-one with students, still feel a spike of anxiety when a parent emails asking for a private meeting, still catch myself wondering if every friendly student interaction is actually a trap. The accusation changed me, made me more guarded, more cautious, less willing to go the extra mile, because the extra mile is where you're most vulnerable. And that's the real crime. Not just what Madison and her mother did to me, but what they did to teaching itself. Every false accusation makes it harder for real victims to be believed, makes it harder for good teachers to do their jobs, creates an environment of fear and suspicion where trust used to be. 3 years later, I'm still teaching, still love it most days, but the innocence is gone. The easy trust, the assumption that doing the right thing will protect you. I've learned that sometimes doing everything right isn't enough, that lies can be more powerful than truth, that reputation is more fragile than we think.
But I've also learned that standing up matters, that fighting back against injustice, even when it's costly, is worth it, that there are students and colleagues and parents who will stand with you if you stand for what's right. Madison Wells tried to destroy me with a lie, but I destroyed the lie with the truth, and I'm still standing.